Parents, we need to take responsibility and we need to take action because children are constantly victims of sex trafficking. As parents, you need to take control of the situation as an authority figure in your area. You need to know these things if you want to help your children or the children living in your neighborhood. Here is what you need to pay attention to. Poor mental health or abnormal behavior. This means if they are fearful, anxious, depressed, overly submissive, tense or nervous, paranoid, they have unusual fear or get anxious behavior after bringing up law enforcement, and they show signs of substance abuse or addiction. The second thing that you need to pay attention to are poor physical health. They show signs of poor hygiene, malnourishment, and or fatigue. They show signs of physical and or sexual abuse, physical restraint, confinement, or torture. Another red flag is lack of control. So they have few or no personal items, is frequently monitored, is not in control of their own identification documents such as their ID or passport, and is not allowed or able to speak for themselves. This means that third party may insist on being present and or translating for them. Other things that you need to keep aware of is their claims of just visiting and inability to clarify where they are staying, their lack of knowledge or whereabouts and or do not know what city they are in. They appear to have lost sense of time. They share scripted, confusing, or inconsistent stories. They protect the person who may be hurting them or minimizing them. The problem of sex trafficking is that this chain is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting closer and closer to us, meaning your children are more exposed to these pimps, and therefore it can be taken from you and become a part of the modern day slavery that is sex trafficking. Not far away from us was a chain in Mission, Texas that recently got busted by authorities, so this shows that it's closer to us than you may think. In my research, I found that sex traffickers choose their victim through various ways. How they look, where they live, usually low-income areas. They tend to choose the outsiders and prey on their weaknesses. Some even use social media to get in contact with young girls. And my sources gave me further insight on how these traffickers find their victims and how they are considered sex trafficking to be the modern day slavery because these victims are held in captivity and aren't allowed to have contact with their family members. One of my sources brought out how these girls who are trafficked are being mutilated and have so many diseases due to the favors they give, such as sexual violence and physical assault. Diseases due to such as sexual violence and physical assault are physical things you can see on these victims, but they also have internal health problems to what they are pressured and told to do, such as exhaustion, frequent viral illnesses like STDs, vaginal infections, back aches, sleeplessness, depression, headaches, stomach aches, and eating disorders. Post-traumatic stress disorders is also a consequence of this, as are mood disorders such as dissociation and depression, as well as a higher risk of being murdered. The gaps that I had in my research were that finding out what happens to these victims when they get out of their sex chain and will they ever be normal again. These gaps need to be addressed because this is happening so close to us that parents need to be aware and know what to do so they can take action when they feel someone is being trafficked. As I interviewed Maricela Gloria, a public health nurse with training in human trafficking, I asked her some questions. What do you recommend we do if we feel we know of someone or we see someone is being trafficked?
Well, remember that child abuse, domestic violence, and sexual abuse or older abuse is a mandated reportable situation. So there's no such thing as a willing sexual partner when it comes to sexual abuse or assault or indecency with a child. And failure to report child abuse is a Class A criminal offense.
So what are your ideas of taking appropriate action?
We can contact local law enforcement if the situation is urgent or an emergency. We want to report to the Department of Family and Protective Services. We can contact the National Human Trafficking Resource Center at 1-888-3737-888 or text Be Free. And of course, when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're safe, that we're doing this and we're practicing safety and precaution while doing this.
What would you add to my thinking?
In all the situations that we encounter throughout our lives, we want to be vigilant for potential instances of human trafficking. If we know the red flags and the indicators of human trafficking, we can play a key role in identifying more victims.
Is there anything else that we need to be aware of?
Well, human trafficking is not just a global problem. It is a national crisis, one that every parent, every teacher, every student, all of us must work to understand and to help address. There are an estimated of 313,000 victims of human trafficking in Texas alone, and approximately 79,000 of those are minors that are victims of sex trafficking in Texas. Commercial sex exploitation is quickly moving up to the #1 most profitable illegal industry in the U.S. because while drugs or guns can only be sold once, a child or person can be sold over and over again.
So what is one true story you recall of a child being trafficked?
The Texas Attorney General has put out a video that has multiple situations or certain individuals that have been trafficked, and it gives us their stories. That video is called Be the One. So I do recommend that everybody watch that video to see how close trafficking is in our area. It can happen anywhere. Girls, boys, adults can all be trafficked. So it's not just something that can happen to young girls. It can happen to many different individuals. And this video gives a good outlook of what the red flags are so that we can be well informed.
Okay, thank you. In conclusion, parents need to take an action because they are the authority figures in the community. Because children are constant victims of sex trafficking, we need to be aware of the signs that they give us, such as poor mental health or abnormal behavior, poor physical health, lack of control, and other things that I gave that are listed. So parents, we need to take control of this problem.